health promotion or health service administration track, if they are going into one of those doctoral programs, it is difficult for them to get into getting those substitutions made during their first year, as Joel said. My thought, and I really haven't discussed this, I just was reading the minutes and the notes, and feedback from the curriculum committee would be, if a student is health promotion coming in and they want to go to med school or go to occupational therapy school or whatever, they should probably go into the pre-professional track. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Let me reference occupational therapy. In a year or so, that is going to become a totally doctoral program, and more programs are also requiring physics, which is really why students chose health promotion and behavior if they were interested in OT, because physics wasn't required. They did have to take anatomy physiology, which of course would be a prerequisite for occupational therapy, but they didn't have to take physics. So that's why a lot of those students ended up in health promotion behavior. So really there would be even more difficulty coming down the line with having to be, they probably would have to switch over to pre-professional health anyway. Really haven't seen, I don't know, maybe there might have been one, but you know, not so much with health service administration. They don't typically end up switching over for a clinical kind of program at MUSC. So I'm of the mindset, and I would love Kristen to jump in too, that if a student so desires to go to PA school, well, PA school isn't part of the accelerated, but if they go to med school, dental school, any of those that Joel just referenced, they should probably switch over to pre-professional, because it's going to make their lives easier, and also their advisor, and also the people at MUSC. Kristen, do you have any comment on that?
No, I agree 100%. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you know, if you do get that, you know, if they're still at Kristen's level, which they probably would be if they're going to really make this switch, they need to just be pre-professional. What really started this whole movement this summer was that I had a student who was pre-professional, and she definitely wanted to get a health science degree as she transitioned to MUSC and finished that final year for her undergraduate degree. So to do that, I said to Ron, we really need to come up with a real plan, because we can't just approve certain people and not approve others. We need to have consistency and really know what, and the student needs to know, because the students have been frustrated that I've dealt with. It hasn't been that many, but the few that I have, they've been very frustrated, not really knowing and feeling very insecure. Am I really going to get the health science degree? I don't want that professional studies. That sounds very vague. I want to be health science. So I, talked to Ron, and he was like, oh, it's all right, blah, blah, blah. Well, then, I got Joel involved with it, because I really thought this is a curriculum committee issue, not the chair of our department issue, or not his and my issue. It's really needs to be owned by the faculty and the curriculum committee. So Kristen graciously, said, yes, I'll work on it with you. And I have to say, she probably, did do the brunt of it. And I just kind of looked it over. And I am also now the person, if you're a pre-professional health studies student who is in the accelerated program, they're going to come up to me as they leave Kristen. And so we came up with some ideas. And as I said, it was mostly Kristen, for some coursework that could be utilized to fulfill what they need to be health science and be consistent. Everybody would have the same. There wouldn't be that this one took this one took that, but they both ended up with the same degree. So that's the backstory for this. And so having said that, I don't think they should stay health promotion behavior. They would become pre-professional health study students. So those pathway documents that Joel attached are pretty, I think they're pretty thorough. I know Debbie had a few questions, and I don't know, Debbie, if we just take health promotion and behavior off the table and they become pre-professional, does that satisfy the questions that you had?
Pretty much. That
Yeah,
was my recommendation there too, was
yes,
just not have them try that.
right. Okay, so that's, that takes care of that. As far as pre-professional health studies students, first of all, there are very few. I did get two sent upstairs to me, so to speak, and both of those don't want to do that anymore. One has switched from wanting physical therapy to now she wants speech language pathology. Another one didn't make the MCAT score that she needed to continue the accelerated program. And then there isn't a third one, and I can't really remember too much about that one. She's newer to me, but she just, I think, just decided just to stay, get that 4-year degree at Clemson, and then figure out if she still wanted to apply to MUSC or not. So with the pre-professional students, the big thing is we just have to be consistent. And I think those, did anyone have, yes, I think, as Kristen just said, COVID had something to do with it. But, honestly, I think I think some feel they're too young to do it. I've gotten that sense from some that they feel a little intimidated starting in med school or DPT and being maybe a year or two or more younger than their cohort. But back on the courses, I don't know if anybody had any questions on the pre-professional courses they would take. Kristen and I talked a lot, and one thing I think that came from the alumni survey that you were referencing before, and one thing, that some students say is, well, I really wanted to do my internship. Well, that's fine. I have, especially with the alumni survey, it's like, well, I mean, I didn't know they even existed to want to do it. I mean, what, if I don't know them yet, I don't know they wanted to do it, but that summer option is there. And if they don't want to pay for it, that's fine. Then they live with their decision not to do it in the summer. But there's just no way with the number of students that we have that a very early junior is going to get into the internship preparation seminar and then their internship, unless they're very high credit load. They're really a senior when they're only just a first semester junior, which that we do have that. So I have no problem for it, for them doing it. It's just that I don't know logistically, being just one person, how I could have all the seniors and a bunch of juniors. So that summer option is there. The other thing to consider for pre-professional is you have to really plan when they're a freshman or sophomore. If they're interested in the DPT program in particular, just some reference, MUSC starts the DPT program in the summer. When I say summer, I mean May. So literally, if they graduate from us the second week of May, the third or fourth week in May, they are actually in class in MUSC taking anatomy physiology. Now, they take that in their first summer that they are there, the first semester, and they also take that with the physician assistants students. So even though I'm not talking about PA as being part of the accelerated program, but our DPT students are in there with anatomy physiology with the physician assistant students at MUSC and the other DPT students. So they have to be totally done with what's recommended or required by the time of that senior year, or I should say the end of their junior year with us in Clemson. Now, the first student who went through, by chance, she did end up coming upstairs to me for her advisor. And she was an excellent student, and she really wanted to do her internship, but because she hadn't done it the summer before or hadn't taken some classes then, that was the one thing we couldn't fit in. And Denise Anderson wrote off on that. That was no problem. But we do need to be planning for that in the future so that if they are DPT and they do get accepted and do want to leave, they need to have whatever's required. Now, some of those programs don't necessarily require the internship, but they strongly encourage it. So, that would be the only thing that's a little extra planning for. But other than that, Kristen, don't you think it's pretty straightforward what the students have to take and should take for pre-professional?
Yes, and I mean, and I would just add, most of these students are coming in with some sort of credit.
Yeah.
So it is very rare that the student is going to have have to take every single course that's laid out on that sheet. They probably still are going to have some wiggle room. So, I mean, that's the strong majority of the student profile in our major. So.
Did anyone have any questions about that, or does it make sense? Or
I'm trying to come up with a list of bullet points to summarize this. So the first important point, which has been mentioned several times here, and it's good for us to hear, it's definitely going to be good for the rest of the faculty to hear and be reminded, is that that in these 5 accelerated degree programs, and there are others, as we all know, there's a small number of students who are actually going to do this. It doesn't really make sense for the health services track folks to do this because they're more than likely going to pursue an MHA or an MBA or something like that down the road. And the fact that it's so difficult for the health promotion students to get in all the things that they need to get in is not surprising. And if we are going to recommend that we discourage students from trying to get that concentration under their belt and switch over to pre-professional if they're not already, that makes so much sense, because that's what the pre-professional concentration was designed for. It was designed for students who want to go on to get one of these professional degrees. So we need to remind the faculty when we present this back to them, this is a small number of students. This is only 5 of the pathways that we're involved in, and the other pathways that are available, like the BS to MPH, BS to MHA, etc., you would still have students who could be a health services concentration major who go one of those routes, or a health promotion major who go one of those routes. And so it's going to be good, I think, to remind everyone that basically what we're realizing is that, these routes aren't meant for everybody. And these 5 routes in particular, because they're clinically focused, it just makes sense that the pre-professional students are the ones who would track into that accelerated pathway.
And with the MHA accelerated program and the health promotion accelerated, they finish with us and then go down. So they, that's a very smooth transition, and again, not a problem. It's this pre-professional that's a little bit trickier. It can be worked out.
So I guess we need to vote to make a recommendation to the department that any student who wants to pursue one of these 5 accelerated pathways, that they're first in the pre-professional track, or they are switched over to that track as soon as possible, to ensure that the chances of them actually getting a degree with our departmental health science degree stamp on it, if that's what they want, instead of that generic professional studies degree that you mentioned that's really offered from the university, that's the track to do it with.
Do you think it needs a vote, Joel, or should that just be a recommendation?
I guess it could be more of a recommendation. Yeah. And I'm thinking that we'll put together, and I can take the lead on this and just float it around. This will be sort of another memo that summarizes all the things that we talked about. And I think it's going to be easier to share with the faculty, so that we can give them that document ahead of time to read,
Joel,
and then we'll discuss it at faculty meeting.
I think that we almost have the memo. If you look at that thing I sent out earlier.
Yes.
If we agree that we are not going to worry about the health promotion path, then it comes down. I was looking at what votes actually do have to happen, and it looks like the votes would then be how we feel about 4,900. That might actually have to be a vote to accept. I don't know, but it looks like once we take away the concern with the health promotion and you scroll down to where it says faculty curriculum, the first one stays the same, I think. That willing to accept first year of professional school credit for health 4,900. And then I guess it's number 3, maybe, approving accepted transfer credit back as satisfying domain course requirements. Can you see where I am?
Yeah, I do. And Kristen, didn't we already substantiate that this had already been done like through Ann Elizabeth Usury? We know that that will work.
Okay.
That is correct. There's been maybe, definitely Ann Elizabeth, but I think there may have been 1 or 2 more that we've already done this with. So if you need me to track that down, I can, but yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that this summer because that's very important, Debbie. What you say is we have to provide evidence that these students really are getting that during their first year. Now, Ann Elizabeth is in the DPT program, but Kristen, I think we felt that it would be able to be accomplished through any of those, through some research course they would do their first year in any of those.
So I guess I was trying to say, Joel, that it may not be so hard to make this memo. And
Yeah.
it sounds like we may not even have to have a vote. Just
And I'm trying to find that document to pull it up and share it on the screen.
go to your email you sent us, 1021 curriculum committee meeting. I'm looking at it right now. And then you have to scroll down. It's the first of the emails you sent out this morning.
Mm-hmm.
HPB MUSC Excel is like the first attachment you can see. But if you go into the email itself and just keep going down through the thread. I'd offer to pull it up, but I have it on one computer and not on the one I'm Zooming with. Can you find it?
It's with all the accelerated pathway
Yes.
documents.
Uh-huh. You sent it out at 7:57 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, and then which document is it?
Well, it's not a document. Scroll down through the email.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Then you can see Kristen saying, let's wait and talk about today. And then
Okay.
mine saying, you're Kristen and Kathleen.
Yeah.
But that, if we're okay with not having the health promotion be really what we encourage, it takes away a whole lot of those questions.
There we go.
And Ralph, you had had a chat about CEEF. Would it impact CEEF accreditation if they didn't do their internship? I really don't think so because it's so few people and they're doing something good, they're down at MUSC. It would be so few people and there's so much documentation that we already have for the internship piece for that. I don't think so, but that's a good, thought that we should be thinking is how is any of this? I think it strengthens our CEEF reaccreditation because it shows we've been very thoughtful in making sure our students transition to that next level in a very conscientious and way, and they're all doing the same, and it's very documented.
I think I agree with you. And I think there was some comments we had last month too. We thought because it was so few people that probably wasn't going to be an issue, but I'm not involved with CEEF enough if that's like just a red flag, even if it's just a few people. But I agree with Kathleen. I don't think it would be an issue, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. And I like Kathleen's overall. It's just a better thing overall for what our students are doing.
So I think what I would like to do, if everybody agrees, is to put together this memo, which as you pointed out is pretty much already done, and then upload all of the non-health promotion and behavior accelerated pathway plans into a PDF document as a portfolio. So the first page, if you will, is the memo, and then each one of these accelerated pathways would then be another file within that portfolio so that that's all together. So once we get that memo squared away in terms of wording that we like, we can share it with everybody else. I see a lot of head nodding. So the only other thing I wanted to ask about as next steps is there something that we need to do in terms of the undergraduate handbook to make sure this information is better presented, or any websites that we could add some information to so that these things are more clear for students who are thinking about this kind of pathway.
And would this be technically part of our curriculum? So would it be in the undergrad catalog, or would it be kind of like a side thing, like you said?
Or it could even be a note or something like that. I don't know.
I don't think we're probably going to be able to put a note in there in the catalog.
So whatever the general accelerated pathway section is in the undergraduate catalog, that's just it. Okay.
They have an accelerated pathway in the index. You know, if you go to the A through Z index, under A, there are the accelerated pathways. So that's, yeah, that should be, I don't know though, because I guess it should be updated. What do you think, Chris?
Problem is going to be that for each and every degree program on campus, it will be very different for all of them.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, you basically have to have a whole nother catalog
Gotcha.
of plans for each and every major in there, you know.
Okay.
So my guess is they'll probably just say, we're going to keep it out of the catalog, and you can have supplemental for your major, you know, just because it.
So it's more of an internal advising issue.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that
'cause
makes things easier.
they had that page, you know, the accelerated pathways page, but like Kristen and Kathleen are saying, that's for the whole university. So I think you're right. It has to be just internal for us.
What
And I
about on
don't-
our webpage?
Yeah,
I don't
I'd
remember
say-
what we have in terms of accelerated pathways. I could pull that up right now, actually. I am sharing my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think putting it on the departmental website or somewhere like that, I think that would be helpful.
And then that way we don't just have to communicate this through advising to our students. There would still be a site where they can go learn more about it and then go see Kathleen.
Yeah. Well,
But at least if there's a web page that would minimize go see Kathleen, at least a bit of that.
I haven't actually looked at our website in a while.
Let's see, accelerated pathways. Okay, I don't see a link here.
I think one thing we have to be careful about is advertising this program, because it does compete with our graduate program. And so I think you just have to make sure you run anything like that through, I guess, Sarah or Ron.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different enough that, you know, those people are going to self-select out, but that is a valid point.
I know, like anything that I do with Jaquetta, who's in charge of the MPH accelerated program, Sarah asked me to run through her before I do anything. So I guess I'm just saying, before we put anything on the web, like I'm not saying, you know, obviously we want kids to be able to do it because it's our program, but just might want to check on that.
So the real practical question here is, given that, I mean, how many people per year would we say would be interested in this, in one of these 5 pathways?
Well, now, so see, that's an interesting question, because they all come in as freshmen, not all. But everyone's all gung-ho and wants to hear more about it freshman year. And then you show them how they have to take the sciences to take the MCAT early. And then that's where we end up with 1 or 2 students that end up, you know, by sophomore year still pursuing it. So
yeah, well, that's really the number I wanted to know. And so then that begs the question is, should we take the time and effort to put information on a website if it's just 1 or 2 students that are actually going to do it, you know?
Well, where do they find out about this information? Is this something they're hearing from MUSC? Is it just
Good question.
saying, hey, here's an option, it's not on the books?
I talk about it at their orientation, because if I don't, they've heard about it from somewhere.
Mhm.
They're lurking on our website somewhere. Health Professions Advising has it on there. So it gets talked about at their info sessions. So I usually mention it at orientation. And then when I'm doing long-term planning with the new students, like earlier this semester, they'll just ask if they're interested in pursuing it.
And as you can see, there's no other accelerated program information on our website.
And
between us.
MUSC does come here and do information sessions. Or I know the MPH accelerated person does. I don't
Yeah.
know about the other people.
Yeah, and they have, but they generally just do an MUSC day,
Mhm.
and that's organized by Harlan. So again, it's less of a health science thing; it's more of a health professions thing. So I don't know if that makes a difference, but yeah. And of course, with COVID, we haven't done 1 and 2 semesters now. So
Well,
Well,
Jaquetta did specific to our students. Actually, she came to some classes, or she last year went into a bunch of classes because I had to give her like ones to go into. So they're definitely trying to recruit more, but again, I had to run it through Sarah, and she wanted to make sure that they were doing the same efforts, like parallel kind of efforts. So,
that was for the MPH accelerated pathway, though.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
I would say for doctor and DPT and
they're not doing it.
dental, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
So Shaw just shared this link, and I clicked on it. This is one of our internal programs. So it is an accelerated BS to master's program, but the students are staying at Clemson and not going to MUSC. So that one is different than the other accelerated programs.
And also, I talk about this one as well. Literally, my orientation slide has a link to this, to the MUSC accelerated pathway
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
US Wellness and Greenville early assurance program. So I am outlining all options
Okay.
at orientation. So just to make sure that gets said as well.
Well, I think we're good then. So that's just less work for us to have to do.
And maybe
It's really more about us summarizing this, having it all in one place whenever we need to refer back to it, and sharing the information with the rest of the faculty so that they understand big picture what's going on.
And that all the students are treated equally for pre-professional as far as if they want that health science degree.
And I guess then it sounds like what we're saying is that we would just have that internal document to help us with advising, which sounds like we have that. And then maybe we just double check the pre-professional or the health science advising website to see if that looks kosher or looks fine. But I agree with Joel and Amelia, let's not promote it too much and just make sure we're prepared to deal with it.
Well, I think we're done with that item. Anything else?
Thanks for all the work you guys did. I think we said this
Yes.
last month, but Kathleen and Kristen, I'm looking at those documents. I think those are, they just look so helpful for people dealing with this pathway. So if I can repeat again, thanks again for that.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Have a good rest of the meeting.
So much
Oh,
work
stick
here. Thank you,
around.
Kathleen.
I've got another one at 3:30. So,
Like I said, there's smart people here.
bye.
I know.
Bye.
Bye, Kathleen. Thank you. All right. So moving on, let me pull up the memo. That would be reminder 1. Where is reminder 1? Okay, here we go. Oh, and Ralph actually sent me one with more comments, and let me pull that one up.
You can tell I prepared for the meeting the hour before the meeting.
No, we appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to pull this one up.
There it is.
All right. So, this, I don't know if memo is the right term. And Amelia really did all this work. So if you have problems with it, it's her deal, not mine. I'm just kidding. No, she
All
did
right.
all the work. I want her to get the credit for it. So essentially, we have been talking about medical terminology going back to last year. Just lots of questions and concerns and, good and bad, I guess. And just, I felt like we needed to sort of have everything all in one place so that we can sort out all the issues related to this course. So just to summarize quickly, it is a course that's in high demand. We have a lot of students who want to get into this course and can. Of course, we give our majors priority to get into this course. We could teach more sections of this if we had the manpower or woman power to do so, because there are a lot of students across campus that would like to take it. At the same time, as you know, the number of university students is growing, although I guess COVID probably put a damper on that to some degree. There are a lot of students that are taking gap years or just a year off from school. But we have increasing demand for this course between more students in the general population, as I guess the word gets out about it as an option, that kind of thing. But in addition to that, last spring we talked about this course potentially being added as an additional class that could be selected for the undergraduate certificate in public health. We had some discussion about that and it sort of stalled out. And then we were notified in the summer, beginning of fall, that there is a new undergraduate certificate program that's in development. I believe that this is going to be, the home is actually in bioengineering, but it's what we're referring to as the Arthrex certificate. And it's really one that's designed for students in different degree programs who want to work at Arthrex, whether they be marketing people, bioengineering, health science, whatever. And so this course was one that was mentioned as one of 3 courses that students could choose from. They would have to take one health course. This is one that was on the list. I think it was epidemiology, health systems, and medical terminology. And I think it makes a lot of sense for that certificate. And so, we just wanted to, there's also been some discussion along the way as to whether or not we want to continue offering this. Do we want to let another department at the university take it over? Several other things. And that's what we're trying to capture here. When you look at these questions to consider, do we want to continue offering it? Do we have the resources to do so, and so on? So I did give Ron a heads up that this is something we're talking about. He said that he looks forward to the feedback that we provide and the recommendations that we provide. But I can tell you that his perspective at this point is to not get rid of the course. And that's about the extent of what we talked about. It wasn't anything very detailed. So that's just a quick summary here. I added a note. Ralph added several notes and questions. And so basically what we want to do here is make sure that we've got all of our facts, concerns, whatever you want to call them, that we have everything captured here, and then that we have a complete list of questions to consider to move forward, not only to Ron, but to the rest of the faculty. And Ron has actually, he said to me that he would be more than happy to make time at the next faculty meeting, have this as an item on our faculty meeting agenda for everybody to discuss. And so, the timeliness of this memo, I think, is appropriate given that suggestion from him. So I'll be quiet now.
Do you want me to address some of Ralph's comments just so we can go ahead and?
Yeah, let's just walk through it that way, and then additional comments and thoughts can kind of flow out of that.
Okay. Health 2600 MedTerm is not a domain course right now. It's just elective. I don't know if maybe it was in the running last year when y'all were making all the domain courses. But it's not on my master list that I'm aware of.
We purposely kept it out because of the demand on it.
Okay, good.
Was that the reason? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
How well do we currently accommodate these majors? Outside majors, we accommodate them very well. Joel, if you scroll down to the chart below, Karen Edwards sent me this. She teaches most of the sections in the fall, or really all of the sections in the fall and spring, and then we have other instructors in the summer. But this gives you an idea of where the students are coming from, which majors, and you can see that it's pretty varied across campus: health, bio, psych, nutrition, veterinary sciences, genetics, micro, PRTM, and nursing. And she is able to accommodate really whoever asks her to. I mean, I don't know that she turns students away. She has a bleeding heart. And so she will take in all of them. Can you scroll back up? Let me see what else Ralph asked. Are they being prevented from taking this course because of non-PHS majors enrolling ahead of them?
So I guess the question there is by
Yeah.
accommodating these students, are our students having more challenge getting the course? They want
Well,
to take it as an elective.
Yeah, she always accommodates PHS seniors first, but she would accommodate like probably a vet science over a PHS, a vet science senior over a PHS junior, because she's just trying to help everybody get it so they can go to graduate school if, if they need it.
And there is no restriction that you have to be a health science major. So
Right.
that's not a concern. You do have to be a junior or senior. So what it would tell me is it's a first come, first serve type of situation on those seats, starting with the people that have the most priority registration.
And I think we talked one time, maybe something to throw into this was maybe having sections that are for non-public health science majors, and then having sections for public health science majors. And then on top of that, that might help with the revenue issue. Because I know we don't really discuss revenue here, but I know if Karen's teaching this out of our department and budget, the more we teach, we're just financially covering that. But I think some of the talk was, could we make this something as part of the certificate? Would that allow us to get revenue back into the department to pay people to teach it? And I think that was something that was floating out there, whether we deal with that or not.
Yeah, I think that model is certainly a good one to think about from a educational standpoint, and maybe financial, if it helps financially, just because you've got all these PHS students in there and they can be maybe learning it a little bit differently than if you've got all your other all different majors. So just like you do with the cert students.
And I know in the certificate program, having dealt with that, one of the justifications for us getting direct revenue in the fall and spring was because we were serving non-public health science students who wanted these courses. And if we weren't, double dipping, trying to make money off of our own students, that was good. So I think now this is kind of like a similar model, it seems. If you want us to be teaching these courses, can we get revenue? A, can we just get revenue for doing this? Or B, do we fold it into a certificate program, and that's how we justify getting revenue for it? Just thoughts there. Go ahead, Amelia, sorry.
I think that was the last question that you addressed about just kind of maybe having different courses. What will the standard rigor be for this course, PHS versus non, if we had two different ones?
Yeah, I think that last comment, I think all my other comments were essentially, how do we make sure to accommodate our students? How do we deal with, promoting revenue on this so we could pay people to teach it, or however that works. And then I think we had some discussion too last month on what is the rigor for this course. And I think Debbie had mentioned there's been issues in the past. We also talked about how rigorous do we make it for sophomore level versus senior level. You know, do we have a rigor for our majors who tend to want that rigor, you know, but we also hear messages like I hear in the certificate program, we hear these hints of this is an online course. We don't want it to be that rigorous. So I think at some point, one of the questions to be considered is what is that rigor going to be, you know?
And where should it fall in their curriculum? Or does it fall in the curriculum? You know, should it be included in a pre-professional track, or is it just an elective that a lot of them are going to take because they almost all need it for these graduate programs?
And I noticed in your notes, Amelia, just as a side thing, I noticed you said that none of the South Carolina graduate schools require it. It's only out of state graduate schools that require it. Was that correct?
That's correct from my end. I've only ever seen it as a recommended course. Now, students will tell you that is required.
Right.
But when we get down to brass tacks, it really is just a recommended, not a, it's going to keep me out of med school. But, you know, again,
Maybe they might feel like it's highly preferred.
yeah.
Or when you say graduate schools out of state require it, are you talking about schools of public health?
Pre-professional?
I'm seeing med school, PT schools, OT, dental. I mean, they're all a lot of anything that they're going to go on to that way is where
Clinical professional programs. Okay.
Because I think what I'm getting at too is, you know, I hear that in the certificate program where I have to have this certificate to graduate. You know, we all chuckle because no, you don't have to have the public health certificate to graduate. Then they're like, well, I need it to get into graduate school. Well, you don't need it to get in. You know, we're hearing these messages, and then we're hearing students say, I have to have this to get, it's required for medical school. But now I'm hearing, well, it's only recommended within South Carolina. So maybe a critical thinking question.
And
would be is
Ralph,
how much-
even a lot of out-of-state med school, at least for med school, based on my daughter's experience, didn't absolutely require it either, because she didn't have one.
I think the main one I see where it's required are PA schools.
Okay.
But yeah, Debbie, I agree. A lot of the out-of-state schools don't require it either, but you know, there are going to be some situations where it absolutely is a requirement. It just, you know, depends.
And as we weigh the pros and cons, maybe just the thing to think about is this isn't like they have to have this and we're going to start, you know, seeing drops in acceptance rates, because if we do back off of this, it's not like it's going to prevent tons of kids from going to grad school. Although I agree that the need is out there. And I'm just looking at both sides of the teeter-totter here, just to get that out there.
And I would just say too, I mean, this class just recently began being offered again. And unfortunately, I'm a dinosaur and I've been around for a while. So before we had it on the books, what I would advise students to do would be to take it at a tech school in the summer, and they'll count that. You know, medical terminology is kind of medical terminology is medical, you know, there's not a large variation in that. So that still is an option, and a fairly economical one. That is accepted. But, you know, again, I totally get students wanting to take it here, but it's not like there aren't some other options as well.
That was what I did. Once I knew I was going to work in a clinical setting, I said, I need that course so I can understand what I'm reading.
Yeah, I took that class my senior year as an undergrad and went, wow, this would have been neat to take my freshman year.
I think before we take it to the faculty meeting, I think we would need to try to figure out, well, what is our end goal? Because I feel like in the faculty meeting that could get really in the weeds. So I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm seeing a difficult conversation, or like lots of ideas, and I think That just creates a little anxiety. Who's going to handle that?
I hate to throw this out, you know, but I mean, honestly, if students are taking this as a professional school requirement, you know, one of the strategies could be a 3.0 or better GPA. And I feel bad saying that, but we all realistically know that if you have a 2.75, you know, you're not probably going to get right into that professional school. And so, I mean, that could, and again, I don't know how many students are taking it. They may not be if they're below that mark, but that could be another very justifiable, you know, kind of standard to put into place for registration for the course. But
So that would be an issue that would have to run through all the curricular channels where we add a prerequisite.
true. So maybe that's not the strategy.
No, I don't mind doing it. I think it makes sense. The undergraduate curriculum committees, I don't go to those meetings. I go to the graduate curriculum committee meetings at the university level. And so, you know, I don't know how something like that would be taken. I can't imagine there'd be any major pushback on it, but you know, we do have Mike Coggeshall from sociology, who is our primary college representative to the undergraduate curriculum committee at the university level. And he's been doing it forever. And he's got a really good understanding of when something's going to be a problem or not, how to word things when it goes through curriculog and so on and so forth. So, you know, if that's something we need to do, it's something we need to do. And I'm getting very familiar with curriculog. So, you know, if we decide to do that, we can.
And I think I want to just repeat, I think what Amelia said was very wise just a couple seconds ago. You know, what is our goal of this? Is it to, you know, determine if we're going to offer the course? Is it to figure out how to support teachers who are going to teach the course? You know, is it going to be, let's push people away and restrict the burden on offering the course so that we can deal with our majors better? I think we've talked about a lot of the issues, but it seems like we need to have some of those. What are our end goals before we can start making decisions? Right now, it's just, hey, let's look at the issues.
And I think that's gonna, what the next thing I wanted to do is where we have concerns and where we have questions to consider here, I want us to make sure that we have everything in place that we want as a committee. And so whether that's concerns or we change it to issues or whatever, that's sort of like the background information, the facts about this this program, you know, when it has come up as a potential course to add to certificates, issues about demand, so on and so forth, kind of big picture stuff, and then questions to consider. And we can change that to, you know, the department needs to decide on what, to make it more pointed if we need to. But I think that's where we're really gonna make sure that we have a clear delineated what do we need to do now to answer Amelia's question or her point that she raised, is to make sure that we have the appropriate questions here. And that's really what's going to be discussed among the faculty. That's the way I see it.
Amelia, do you have you formed an opinion of what you think would be the best way forward for this class?
That's a loaded question. I I would like to see it offered because I think it helps the students. And but if we're going to offer it, I feel like it needs to be offered in the right way. So I think it needs to be offered where they can take it as a sophomore. I don't want to say I don't care about the other majors and accommodating them, but that's not my purpose.
Yeah.
So if we need to accommodate them because we've been asked by the university, then I like the idea of doing 2 separate sections. Or maybe, you know, Ralph sometimes has this one section that he then opens a second one up if needed. So if we didn't have our PHS one fill, sure. we could consolidate kind of thing. So
So
those are
let me interject one piece of
okay.
information here. When I spoke with Ron, not only did he say, you know, right now I can tell you that I don't want to get rid of this program, he also said if we need to put more resources towards this, like hire a part-time or full-time person just to do that, that's something that he would consider. I didn't ask him that. He offered
Okay.
that.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
And we
my my
lots of
naive
summer offers.
about
Makes
this,
sense.
about a class like this is like, this seems to be like a course that you can offer to a much larger class with sufficient TA support. So if somehow generate, generate cash revenue for the department, and then we can use part of the cash revenue to hire more TAs to support a bigger class. Unless that somehow affects our ranking or whatever, that's another.
I think that's a good point, but the only problem with that, Lou, is that the majority of students that we have in our graduate program, if they do have a clinical background, then they're working full-time at Prisma or something like that. When I think about our PhD students, the majority of them do not have the clinical background to be able to TA this class. They simply don't know the clinical language, and that's a very important thing. And so when you're in other situations, like if you're in a nursing program where this is a class that's offered, and I don't know if our nursing program offers it or not, but when you're in other programs like that, where you have people who have actually worked in the clinical setting and who read SOAP notes and who interact with doctors and other clinicians and that sort of thing, they've got the real experience with understanding medical terminology, where most of our graduate students do not. So it wouldn't be a guarantee that every year we have, for instance, a PhD student that would have the right background to be able to help with this class.
Yeah, then when on those years we can do like either the co-teach or the like the seeking help from the school nursing. Those, but I think anyway, my general impression of the undergraduate culture of Clemson is that we might be moving in the direction of larger classes overall, not just this class.
And I was a little bit different topic, but I think don't lose sight of number 3 of catching up on the backlog. We have a lot of students who are juniors and seniors who have been waiting to take it. So to move it to a sophomore, and tied back to what you said, Joel, I think a have to is going to be putting additional resources to it in the short term to get all the students who have been waiting to take it, get them through quicker, and then you can start to implement the students it's norm to take it more sophomore year instead of having to wait because there's no seats available.
So one of the things we might think about doing is, we could paint different scenarios, right? So if we continue things as they are now, this is what we need to be able to offer this course sufficiently. If this course were to be added to the Arthrex program as an option, it's going to be one of 3 courses that students can take, and probably most of them are just going to be like, I just need to check off a health box here. There will be some that come through who probably would say, I definitely want medical terminology versus something else, but that's just me guessing here. So that's going to create a little bit of demand. If it were to be added to an undergraduate public health certificate program, there may be more demand there than there would be through Arthrex. I don't know. So I think we could think about what resources do we need now to make this better and make this doable, because I feel like we need something now versus if we were to include this as another course that's offered in one or more certificate programs, or if we were to just have another scenario where it's just opened up to non-majors, I think we could have, we could ground it in those 3 scenarios and say, if this is what we choose to do, this is what we need. I think that would be a very useful way to put a recommendation forward.
And I don't know if you saw my comment there, is this might be a good time if everybody's pushing for this class. Maybe, I think Joel, you were going to talk to Ron about this. I don't know if we did, but seeing about getting that direct revenue from these certificate courses or those online courses. If everybody's advocating that we need to offer this, maybe we, right now say, hey, well, like, can we get direct revenue for this coming into our department, which is something Ron's pushing for with the public health certificate. And we can say the reason we should get that direct revenue is because we're meeting non-majors, we're going to be accommodating the Arthrex program, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I don't know if that's our role to do that, but it seems like this would be a nice time to get a check off on, hey, let's make this a revenue stream other than just summer revenue. Does that make sense, or I'm kind of playing around with there?
Yep. So that's another thing to consider.
Because if the money's there, we can probably, if we have the money coming in a lot, if there's the demand there that's a lot, there's a lot of, like you just said, there's a lot of options from how do we stretch our faculty to how do we find new faculty to, we can do that with money. What's hard to do is not having money and saying, now how's Amelia going to meet all our demands with, with the people we got, so that might be the easier to make decisions with cash in hand than, make decisions without cash in hand, not to make it a money thing.
So outside of, what we have here listed as questions to consider and what we've talked about over the past few minutes, are there other questions to consider that we need to add to this list, or are there other issues or concerns that we need to add to the list? If not, I want to close out this discussion and continue through the agenda. So I will expand this memo. I'm going to go back to our recording and make sure that I don't miss anything. And I'll share that with everybody. And that'll be your opportunity. That'll be another opportunity to add something in case you maybe think of something later. All right. So let's see here. Now we're down to C here. So we had alumni feedback that was shared by Becky, actually back in the spring or early summer. Amelia, I think it was early summer, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was really collected for the purposes of CEF accreditation stuff, reaccreditation, ongoing work related to that. She shared it with us and said, maybe the curriculum committee wants to take a look at this and see if there's anything relevant that's, curricular that needs to be taken care of. Because there was some feedback about specific classes and that sort of thing. It's been a while since I've looked at that document, so I can't remember off the top of my head everything that was in there. So one of the issues we talked about was, the sample that she had, and, we don't want to make any, there's a point that we've made a couple of times that we don't want to make any big curricular decisions because 2 or 3 students said something, unless it's, really sort of, holy cow, why are we not doing that kind of thing, right? And so you have to sort through the validity of those kinds of comments and feedback and, and that sort of thing, and think about the numbers behind them. So what I would like to do is send that feedback out to everyone again for us to discuss next time. So I had this on the agenda just so I didn't forget to mention it and kind of bring us back to it. So as we've sort of checked off things on our original list of to-do items, I wanted to circle back to that because it was lower priority. Any questions about that one?
Sounds like a good plan.
Okay. All right. So the next new business is that, and these two things, the informational item is actually tied to this. So Tanya Staten has taught this infectious disease and exposure management course, based on her clinical infectious disease background before she came to us. She has taught this course a couple of times as a special topic, and it's very popular, and she has shared the syllabus with us, which I shared with you, and has asked that we consider making this an actual health course. It would be one that we could add to the domain of special populations. So that would add to, an additional course that students could take. It really leverages her expertise and that sort of thing. And so the only question that came up along the way is, well, what if we create this course and then Tanya leaves? And so all I can say is that she assured us that she does not plan to go anywhere. It's a relevant question, but I think we could definitely pull someone in to teach it if we needed to, or if we got to that point where we didn't have someone to teach it and couldn't bring someone in, then we would just get rid of the course. I mean, that's just the reality of the nature of university classes. So do you want me to bring up the syllabus so we can look at that together, see what's on there?
We could. Is that something we'd vote on today? I mean, I think that's good to look at it. I know I'm getting ready to evaluate her class too this semester. And I think that's the class I'm going to look at. So it'd be nice to hear feedback we have. I'm sure it's a great class. I know in passing, I know there's some things like, I haven't looked at what's all involved in the course other than she says it's a really good course, and it sounds like it is. Something that I heard was that it doesn't have any textbook. It's just stuff that she knows.
Yes.
I wasn't sure, if the course design met what would be required for us to have a permanent course. I think it sounds like a great one. I'm not sure what it all takes to get the thing through, and does it compete with other programs, which I doubt it does, but.
Yeah, so apparently there are no other classes on campus that are like this. So there are some classes that touch on a few of these topics, but there's not a class that's put together in this way. She covers a lot of different topics, as you can see here. This is a really, really good class for any student who wants to go on to a professional clinical program. I mean, I would highly recommend this class to any student who wants to go into the medical world, regardless of their specialty. It would just give them such a leg up on for the things that they're going to be learning about in med school. So the prerequisites are biology, anatomy, and medical terminology is preferred. That looks like that one wouldn't be required, but we'd have to figure out how to handle that as a curriculum item.
I did have a question about that, because to me it seems all three are preferred. So is she saying
Maybe
biology and anatomy is required and then med term is just preferred?
Yeah, and so we'll clarify that with her.
List the specific courses, the course number that comes in.
So there's 3 exams. There's a pathogen related final, several assignments, discussions along the way. There's tracer activity. Let's see, maybe that's down below here. Amelia, if there's anything that you remember from your conversations with her, which you've had more than I have, that you think are relevant, just chime in here.
No, other than I did want to reiterate what Kristen said about, I know the students really are enjoying the class, certainly given the time that we're in. And she did say that she didn't want to make it, or I noticed on her Instagram post, she didn't want to make it necessarily like pandemic COVID heavy, they do talk about it, but it's not like the focus of the class. You know, she was going to do this before and did have it all planned before the pandemic even began. So it just ties in nicely with what's happening in our world. But I don't know, I'm not as familiar with like what Ralph's talking about, what maybe needs to be included in courses when we put them through the system. I don't know what those requirements are.
And that's where my, you know, people like Mike Cogashaw in particular, and Tracy Fasolino are very helpful for me to make sure that when we put a proposal together that it's appropriate. And then so not only do you have that level of advising, putting proposals together, it comes to our college committee. And so people within our college committee will often raise questions or things like that that require further documentation. Usually it's a question that they raise where it's already been thought of, because you have people like Mike and Tracy that are used to this. You know, that we have a process where these things can be put together and revised as needed along the way before they actually go to the university committee. And so I've been able to get kind of an inside view on that, and it's really helpful to
I
see
think
that.
3 issues that are popping up in my brain. One is still the, no readings at all outside of class from what I'm getting. It sounds like it's just stuff she knows. I'm not sure if that's the case. 2, I think she's also in a situation where we can only offer this course as a 4,000 level course like 3 times. So I think it would be something that would be helpful for her to, turn this into a course sooner or later. And I like the idea in our era of chronic disease overload that we have something that's infectious disease related. And I remember that at the School of Public Health in Carolina. It seemed like every single course was chronic disease related. And I think there was one infectious disease course. And now, we're kind of caught with where's all our infectious disease education, and we don't seem to have that. So I like the idea of the course. I like the idea of acting on this so it doesn't go away. If it's forced to go away because she's taught it a number of times. But I also, maybe a teeny concern is, if there's no readings, is it just stuff she knows off the top of her head? Is it websites? And I haven't had a chance to review her syllabus in detail enough. But as I also mentioned too, I'm looking forward to, in a couple of weeks, sitting in on the class. I think she also does it as a flipped classroom where they listen to recorded lectures all ahead of time. And then, like she mentioned in our last faculty meeting, the class is more like activities sessions, things like that. But again, I haven't had a chance to review the syllabus in detail enough, but those are just a couple general thoughts, not positive or negative, just thoughts.
And the syllabus is super important when it's a new class that's being created. They will look through every single line. And if you have a period out of place, they will make sure that it's fixed. I promise you.
And one other quick thing is, did she talk about the level of course? Is this a 200, 300, 400 level?
Amelia, what's your recollection on that?
We didn't talk about it that I remember. Do you? I don't. I guess.
Well, if she wants them to have, and even if it's preferred, if she wants them to have biology and anatomy, I would say it would be probably a junior or higher, so 3,000 or higher. So one of the things we'll have to come up with is, what number hasn't been used yet? What number can we use? So we have to figure that out. But going back to a question that you had, Ralph, you can see the questions that I have here that we've already posed to the college committee. The idea, the general rule is that a class is offered a couple of times before it's submitted as a new course. And that's just to iron out the details of the class and that sort of thing. I have also heard that if you offer it a certain number of times, you cannot make that a class. And it never made sense to me. Like, why would that be? And so that was a follow-up question. And according to Mike, it's not a thing.
Oh,
Like, even if it's been offered 4 or 5 times, that doesn't prevent it from becoming a class. I don't know why it would. I've never understood the rationale, but
I thought I
anyway,
heard, I thought I heard in a meeting once, it's like, I can't remember how it was said, but it was something like 4,000 level courses have a little bit more looseness in how you teach it, what you teach, the standards. But at some point, you need to go through and create more standard, but that just doesn't seem
That's
right.
not it, Ralph. It's that the 4,000, the special topics can only be offered 3 times. And if you're going to keep wanting to teach this class, it needs to become a course. But it's not that you can't make a new course because you taught it too many times as a selected topics. It's not that. It's,
Which is good news for our situation. So she
yeah.
teaching
that makes sense.
being worked out. It's not like this has to be rushed through to become a course.
Yeah.
Well, I will say from the student end, though, is you can take the 4,000 level special topics course. There is a cap on that. And we've been offering a couple of different special topics courses. So you got to be careful about that because, then the students can only take it for 9 total credits. And then also if we're subbing and we're doing all these other things, that can get a little tricky for students as well. So I'm totally advocating for turning it into a real class, but
I see.
I wouldn't say there's no hurry, just from that side of things, if you will, because Amelia's having to process extra paperwork to substitute it. So the sooner we can get it through, the better.
So one other side issue that came up is Tanya raised the question about making this a cross-cultural awareness course because we don't have one in the department. We do have an STS, but we don't have a CCA. But at the same time, she doesn't want to create too much demand for this class outside of our major. So that was one of the things that I think would prevent you from wanting to do the CCA label on it. But in that discussion, it came up that Mike is on a committee where they're talking about doing away with CCA and creating this new thing called global engagement. And so that was just a discovery that we kind of stumbled upon as we were talking about this. So that was the informational piece that I wanted to give to you. I'm assuming that's probably something, and Kristen, I would imagine that you've probably been in some meetings related to this, but that's something that's maybe coming, down the line, and we need to be aware of it and just kind of got an early tip on it. Have you heard anything about that, Kristen?
Just that changes are coming to it and the formatting. But I agree about being cautious about making it a CCA because then there's some, or whatever the new terminology is going to be. But definitely for future discussion.
When she and I and Amelia talked about it, my feeling was that she was thinking about doing that because, as she said, we don't have a CCA course in our department. But I think that maybe her kind of initial thought was that this would make it more appealing, because it could fall into that category. But given that she, and from what I gathered, was really concerned about the class getting too big, that alone made me think, well, you probably don't want to do that then.
Yeah, and Debbie probably can speak to this because I think she teaches the 4310 class.
The STS.
Yes.
Yeah.
They all want to take that one that will double up. So she is correct in that. It would increase demand probably, but.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the demand is there, it's such a good course. So I think I agree with you, Joel. I thought I got the sense too, it's like, hey, I just want this course to be something I can offer regularly. And it probably will go. And we'd hate for it to become now all of a sudden, now it's like a med term kind of class where it's open to everybody,
So I don't think that there's anything for us to vote on today. My feeling from everybody is that everyone's supportive of this idea. And I'll give you a chance to say otherwise if you feel that way. But I think what we need to do, unless any of that's incorrect, what we need to do is between now and next curriculum meeting, we need to make sure that, questions like, are these classes preferred, or do you want to require these? We got to get that nailed down. We need to make sure that the syllabus is, every I is dotted and every T is crossed, as Ralph pointed out, and any other related things about readings and that sort of thing. I think that's a great point that you brought up, Ralph, because there is a field in Curriculog where they ask about textbooks and things like that. So we need to get some of that stuff squared away, and then we could probably vote on it next meeting and have this thing in motion. I could even start the Curriculog proposal and just fill in some pieces later. But we could be ready to submit that and get it into the system as soon as possible before the end of this semester.
And then if there's any issues related to what level course will it be?
Yeah.
I think, what are the standards for 300 versus 200 versus 400?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on that then? All right. So that's everything on my agenda. Is there anything else we need to check in about today or talk about next time?
Can I get a reimbursement on my parking pass since I'm the only one that comes to school?
I didn't buy one.
All right. I know Kathleen says she just pays the $3 a day, and I'm like, what a goofy idea. Now I'm like, maybe I should pay the $3 a day or whatever it is.
I bought one. So
I got my $130
I
pass.
did too, Debbie.
I'll be back in the spring, depending on what the provost meeting is like. What is that tomorrow that they're having the special meeting about
I
plans
think
for
tomorrow at 3:30, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, have fun.
I feel like they're going to tell us something. I don't know. Just the way that it was worded kind of made me think. I don't know.
Is that one of those town hall meetings?
Yeah.
yeah. I think I'll wait to see what the report is on Friday.
Yeah. Watch the recording.
Mm-hmm.
The last town hall I attended, they were like, it's such a rosy picture out there. And then like the next day, social media just blew up with, we're #1 in the nation for COVID cases.
Yeah, but did you see Corey's presentation, Ralph?
I saw.
Corey did a great job explaining that Clemson is testing asymptomatic. These other schools are only testing symptomatic. So there's a huge difference. And Clemson's trying to test everybody. I mean, so.
And I think that's the good message too, that we are doing the right thing. We probably are what everybody else, and if everybody did what we were doing, we'd be looking really good. I like his comment, how we go find all the people. Everybody else seems to be randomly sampling and hopefully they don't find the people.
Yeah. Right. Now, Corey did a great job and said that the administration was willing to go with the most expensive plan that as epidemiologists they asked for and stuff. So.
And I know I'm going in for my 3rd COVID test this semester tomorrow morning. And
Kristen just had the one.
Yeah.
No.
I think I heard 16% is our infection rate. And
so here's a pro tip on that though, because I was like, oh, it'll be a long line and I don't want to drink anything because but then I couldn't spit hardly because I hadn't had anything to drink. And they're like, oh yeah, you should drink something before you come. Oh, you should. I was like, I didn't know that there was going to be 0 people in line.
So
That's
saliva is required. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are in the South, so you could just have a big chew of tobacco in your mouth.
Well,
if they tested Danny Ford, that's what they would test.
Yeah. Come back as tobacco.
Yeah. Some
the nicotine will kill the virus there.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the screening questions. Do you use tobacco, hookah pipes, or something else too? There.
I'm going to scoot out with Kristen too.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, Wanda, you survived. I'm thoroughly impressed that you're still awake.
She may not have survived. Her head's bouncing around. They're like, what the heck just happened?
That's okay. It's good to just hear all the conversation items and that sort of thing. And I guess the only other, I was going to send an email, but on the recordings, is it that they are posted within a matter of a day or two? How would we know how to get to it?
So what, just so you understand the process, this will download to my local computer as an MP4 file. And then this is just the easiest thing for me to do. It's so hard to send those things, put them in Dropbox, whatever. So I upload it as an unlisted file on my personal YouTube site. And I'll just send you the link to that.
Okay.
And then if you have the link, you can view it and listen to it.
Okay, so it'll be on an unlisted file on your person, and you'll send a link.
Yeah, and it takes a little while to upload because they're fairly big files, but I should have that to you. If not by tomorrow.
Oh, you're great. But and then that's available. It's just out there. It doesn't expire.
No, it'll just be. It's permanently unlisted, so the world can't see it unless you're a Russian hacker or something. I guess you could come in and listen to that if you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But as long as you have that link, you'll be able to view it anytime.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And Joel, you don't record. I like all my recordings I leave on the cloud. That's what was always recommended to me, that we record to the cloud, just keep all our files there. I know you and somebody else said they do that too. They download it, put it on their computer, which can fill your computer up quick. But why don't you just keep it on the cloud?
Everything goes into under documents. It goes to a Zoom folder, and so I can go in there and delete all that stuff out. And so once it's out on YouTube, that's fine. But I've never saved it to the cloud and done that. So.
Because that's how I do my classes. I just go save to cloud. I get my link. It comes with transcripts, then. And then
I need to try that then.
Yeah, I think that's what I've heard with CC or with Clemson Online. We recommend that when you do the record to cloud, then you'll get an email that says, here's the link to your recording. And then an hour or so later, they'll say, here's your transcripts have been updated.
Okay,
and then
good.
All I do is just that first link I get, I share that with my students.
Yeah.
Somewhere later on, the transcripts will be added and they maintain it. And then you don't have to worry about your computer one day.
Yeah.
Going, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And you don't
It
have to
eats up a lot of memory. Yeah.
And it's more secure than technically there might be some issue with, private information on the YouTube. But FYI, because I hear different people doing different things, and I just thought the standard practice was record to cloud. But FYI, if you haven't heard that.
It probably is, but I'm just behind the curve on doing that or whatever. But
because Tandy does the same thing too. She loads it to Encore or something, and I just leave it on the cloud.
I'm going to start doing that then.
Yeah. All right.
For anything that's Clemson related. All right. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right.
Joel.
Nice to meet you, Wanda. Take care.
Thank you, and then we'll look for your link, whichever it is. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.